I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome. Hello and welcome to It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. We have a very good program today.
Yes, 2 for the price of 1.
Yes, we have a revisit from one of our favorite authors, Desmond Ryan, who lives in Canada, and he is going to tell us about his latest book. But first, we have an interview with the author Wendy Tyson, who writes the Greenhouse Mystery Series.
Wendy Tyson is a writer, lawyer, and former therapist whose background has inspired her mysteries and thrillers. Wendy writes 3 mystery series: the best-selling Greenhouse Mystery Series, the popular Allison Campbell Mystery Series, and the Delilah Percy Powers Crime Series. Wendy's short stories have appeared in literary journals, and she has short fictions in 2 anthologies: The Night of the Flood and Betrayed. Wendy and her family live in Vermont.
So now we will have our interview with Wendy. Enjoy. We would like to welcome Wendy Tyson to our podcast. She is the author of the Greenhouse Mystery Series that I find fascinating. I really enjoyed them, and we would love to welcome Wendy to our podcast. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, ladies. Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Wendy, how did you get started writing mysteries?
Well, I've been writing, period, for a long time, really since I was a child. And I started out with literary short stories, had several published, I guess, when I was in my teens and 20s. Then in my 30s, decided, kind of in an inopportune time, just finished law school. I was working full-time at a large law firm and decided I wanted to try my hand at a novel. So I did, and I wrote a book that sits on my shelf. It's never been published. Got an agent, but unfortunately the book didn't get published. And my agent at the time said, Wendy, what do you like to read? And I said, mysteries. And she said, well, then write mysteries, write what you love. So that's really when I started. Killer Image was the very first mystery I'd ever written. And I never looked back. I just fell in love with the genre.
Well,
Great.
We're really glad you did get started with the mystery genre.
Where do you get your plots from?
You know, I can't really point to a specific source. I guess like a lot of writers, the inspiration for various plots hits from many different avenues. I'm very visual, so oftentimes it comes from a glimpse of something or a photograph I've taken. And I've gotten into the habit, actually, of keeping photographs of odd things. I'm really sort of obsessed with abandoned houses and buildings. But if I see something that just kind of strikes a chord, I'll take a picture and I keep those photos. And then later, if I'm looking for inspiration, I'll kind of go through them, and sometimes something hits me. I'll give you an example. In Bitter Harvest, which is the second Greenhouse novel, it opens, as you may recall, with the protagonist finding an Adirondack chair situated on a hiking trail above her property. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it spooks her. Why is somebody sitting and watching her house? Well, I had been hiking in Vermont previous to writing that book, and I was on a hiking trail, and we came across an Adirondack chair sitting in an odd place, like on a public hiking trail. And so clearly someone had put it there to take advantage of a view, but I took a picture and it seemed kind of haunting, and it always spoke to me, and it ended up being really the start of that novel.
So you just store this stuff for maybe a future book, or how you see it fitting into your story?
I do, and I'm very much a pattern thinker, so I'm not very linear. And so I was driving between Philadelphia and Vermont maybe a year ago, and I was driving down the road, and there was a man walking along a lake, and his shadow fell in a certain way that it just, again, struck a chord. I couldn't take a picture because I was driving. The book that I just finished, the 5th book in the Greenhouse series, my whole plot was created around that image of that man walking and the way his shadow was falling.
Wow.
I remember watching a TED Talk with Tracy Chevalier. You might know she wrote The Girl with a Pearl Earring.
Yes.
Historical novels. And she had said that she liked to go to museums. And I'm paraphrasing and probably kind of mutilating her TED Talk here, but she would look at paintings, and when one's talked to her, she would sit or stand in front of it and question, like, who is this person? What happened to them? What's their story? Why do they look that way? And it would get her going. And sometimes, like the girl with the pearl earring, a book would come out of it. And I kind of feel the same way. If you never know when that was going to hit. So I just find I'm very open to interactions between people and landscape build from there. I drive a lot, and so I think my mind kind of comes up with plots as it's like on the back burner.
Well, we are always fascinated how writers are inspired. Since we don't have that ability to put it on a page, we're in awe of you writers that can do that.
Definitely.
Thank you. And it's interesting, isn't it, to see some people are very linear and they are phenomenal outliners and everything's very tight and they see the whole thing soup to nuts from the beginning.
Yeah, it really is. So speaking of inspiration, are you more of an Allison Campbell or a Megan Sawyer? And do you put yourself in your stories?
That's a great question. I am neither and both, I guess, is probably the true answer. I relate more to Megan. She's pretty level-headed and can be a little bit obsessive, I guess, is probably the right word. And so I do relate to her. Allison, she keeps a little bit more inside. So I think I probably relate more to Megan. You know, I think as an author, there's a piece of me in almost every character that I write. Clover in the Greenhouse series is kind of quirky, and I relate to her in that way. BB is fiercely loyal. I've seen that in many of the women in my life. You know, I hope to be that person. So there's little bits of me or even people I know in a lot of the characters.
I love the character names you have, like Mary Chance and the Hands. They're great.
It's fun to create character names. I used to just pick names almost out of just a random, and then I started as I was writing more. It became more important to me and rooted in Deceit, the book that just came out in September. The woman who dies, the victim, her first name means death.
Oh,
I have fun with those things too.
Well, we interviewed Reese Bowen yesterday, and she was talking about how names for characters, if she names a character, she will be told by that character that that name is not correct. Until she gets the name right, she's not feeling it. And I just think that's so interesting.
I love it.
Now, do you do your title or your story first?
I love to do a title first if I can. When I write short stories, the story plot is completely driven by the title. I wrote a short story recently for an anthology that was to benefit survivors of crime, specifically domestic crimes. And the story is called Soap. It is very much driven by the title. With the Greenhouse Mysteries, because we kind of keep a little bit to the gardening theme, it's a little to do it that way. So I would say in that case, I don't write to the title as much, but I do. I love to do that because it just frames a story so well.
Now, you had said that you take your inspiration from different things that you see. Do you ever incorporate actual events in your stories?
No, certainly not whole cloth. The inspiration for the whole Greenhouse series came out of a farm my husband and I started. So in that sense, there was a very real foundation for that. But that's really where the similarities end. Occasionally I'll read something and it'll spark an idea. I'm working on another book right now that the entire plot was sparked from an idea that somebody said something to me about. I don't want to give it away because it kind of gives away the plot, but she was telling me a situation about something she had heard having to do with an inheritance, and it just really sparked a whole plotline idea for me that is becoming a book. But again, it's not whole cloth, it's just a little bit of the idea, then becomes something completely.
Right. Your two series are quite different in tone. Like you said before, Allison was a little darker, and Megan, she's more fun. I love to read her. Now, which one is harder for you to get into the mindset to write? The lighthearted or the darker?
Neither. I think I've been writing a lot of Megan, so it's very fresh and very easy to get into her mindset. So in that sense, I think Megan is easier. Once I start back with Allison, it comes pretty easy as well. I like writing darker crime fiction, but the Greenhouse series will always have a special place in my heart because from the farm to the animals to the characters, it just is very real to me and a place that I enjoy going. So I'm hoping that readers enjoy being there as well, despite the murders.
Oh, I do. I loved it when the goat was up on the roof and then She kept getting into trouble. That was very good.
Keep threatening to get goats. My husband is not for that. But
I had goats when I lived in New Hampshire for about a year. They are a lot of work and they're very tricky. Ours kept escaping every time we turned around. We'd have to go find them.
Wendy, I'm curious, what authors inspire you?
I read such a range of books. My comfort food, if you will, is certainly crime fiction. I love Elizabeth George. I love Tess Gerritsen. I love Jonathan Kellerman, Harlan Coben, Hank Philippi Ryan. I read a lot of crime fiction. I grew up on, and honestly, probably my biggest inspiration for writing was Stephen King. I think I read The Stand 10 times, and his ability to create a scene and characterization just really stuck with me when I was a child. But then I enjoy women's fiction. I enjoy literary fiction. I enjoy a pretty eclectic range. Science fiction.
We are huge Stephen King fans. If we didn't do this podcast, we'd probably be doing a Stephen King podcast. I slept in front of a Walmart to meet him. And we went on a tour of his hometown and stood in front of his house and had our picture taken.
Yes. That was an experience.
Yeah, I love his books. I'm still an avid reader.
Now, do you have any new books coming out soon?
I do, actually. So I had one come out in September that was rooted in Deceit, and then I have Ripe for Vengeance. This coming out in July.
Do you have any events or book signings that you attend?
I do. Actually, I'm going to be at the Virginia Festival of the Book, and I'll be doing, I think it's called So Many Ways to Die, a panel at the crime portion of the festival on Saturday.
Do you ever go to Malice Domestic?
I do. Yeah. As a matter of fact, last year was the first year I missed Malice since, I think, 2014. Will you be there as well?
Yes.
Yes,
we've been invited to go.
Oh, nice. Nice. I'm not sure I'll be there this year. I will be at BoucherCon, and I will be at Thriller Fest, and possibly the New England Crime Bake.
Oh, yes. When is that one?
That's in the fall. I don't know the dates off the top of my head.
Sounds interesting.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for being part of our show. We enjoy your book so much, and it's good to hear your insight into how you write them.
Oh, well, thank you very much. If I can say one more quick plug, you asked me books coming up. I also have another book coming out. That's another darker piece. It's called Dark Homage, coming out with Down and Out Books in January of 2020. It's almost a year away, but it's another series that I write called the Percy Powers Crime Series. Delilah Percy Powers is a private detective, and she has a team of women that she solves crimes with. One is a former nun, one is a former stripper, and one is sort of a stay-at-home mom who does PI work on the side. And in the first book, they're investigating the murder of a woman named Miriam Cross, who is a famous feminist author and speaker and philanthropist. She goes missing for a year, and when she turns up dead, she had been living under an alias, and it's her niece who asked the team to find out what happened to her aunt, why she disappeared, and who killed her. So it's much darker than the Greenhouse series.
This will be the first in the series?
Correct.
Well, when that comes out, would you come back on and to talk about it?
I would be thrilled. I would love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with us, and thank the dogs for not barking. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, and hopefully I'll see you in Virginia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was a very nice interview.
It was very nice to finally get to talk to Wendy. This was a long time coming.
Yes, it was. Her books are a lot of fun. She has some interesting characters in there. She lives in a small town. The Greenhouse Mystery Series. She has basically ended the Allison Campbell series, and she is concentrating on the Greenhouse and the new mystery series that she's starting.
The Percy Powers Mystery Series.
I enjoyed her books. The ones I've read were very good. I haven't read all of them yet. Her books are very enjoyable. There's a little romance. It's not gushy. It's not one that you go, ew, I don't want to read this. But it's fun. I will say I did not figure this one out.
Oh, wow. That's saying something.
On the first one I read, I had it figured out pretty quickly. The others, she gets better as she goes on. It was a very enjoyable read, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them.
Wendy, if you're listening, that is a great testament right there. If this woman can't figure it out, you have done your job well.